Hey everyone, in this Arc Raiders guide, I will go over the top 10 tips for new players. Arc Raiders has a lot going on in the game and can be perhaps a little daunting for new players, so hopefully this list will help you get acclimated a little quicker. First on the list is understanding how the queue system works. The game prioritizes solo versus solo players and squad against squad. And it does a really good job of this, by the way. I've played dozens of hours solo and never once run into a duo or a trio. And when I'm in squads, it always seems to be full 3-man squads. Now, this will likely always be dependent on the size of the player base, of course, but it is indescribable how nice it is to effectively have a solo queue in the game. So many players these days like to dive into games solo, so it's really nice that the game actually prioritizes it. In my region of North America, there's a very big difference in the vibe and experience when you queue solo versus squads. Squads is all PvP focused when players see each other for the most part, and there's very little in-game communication. And when I play solos, there's a lot more friendly gamers that are using in-game comms and emotes for that matter, like don't shoot, for example. A lot of people popping up that don't shoot when they're friendly. It's night and day, but it's fun like that. So I did preface my region before stating that because I know every area of the world is different, especially those with lots of different languages spoken. But for me in NA, it's pretty awesome. Next tip, let's talk about salvaging and recycling gear. So in Arc Raiders, players can salvage loot mid-raid, which basically means you're just deconstructing it into different items, typically of lesser quality. By simply right-clicking on an item, you can go to salvage while in raid, and it will tell you what the item is going to deconstruct into. Players do this because they are looking for something other than what they had just found, or they're just trying to make more space in their bag by consolidating into large stacks of, let's say, metal parts, for example. Perhaps the most important aspect of this feature is that you perform this same exact action on the same exact item, but from your hideout, the results are different. For example, if you salvage the Beretta gun in raid, it gives you 2 simple gun parts. But if you do it in your base, it will be 2 simple gun parts and 1 mechanical component. They call this recycling when you are in the base versus salvaging when you are in raid, even though it's effectively the exact same action. Whether you're salvaging or recycling, the results are always the same for each item, meaning that the salvage in raid for a Beretta will always be 2 simple gun parts. And the recycle will always be 2 simple gun parts and 1 mechanical component. Each item in the game yields different results, of course, and the best way to learn them all is to click on the salvage and recycle for each item so you slowly start to learn them and what they produce. When you recycle in the base, the yield is always better than if you did it in raid. So if you can, it's always better to perform this action when you get back home. This leads me to a common question, which is what to keep and what not to keep. In Arc Raiders, loot is always really important. The gameplay loop is designed to ensure that players care about all different types of loot, regardless of how long they've been playing. So since there is no player-driven auction house, and you can only buy a very limited number of items from the traders every 24 hours, crafting items in the workbench with loot recipes will be a common practice for players. Also, even when you upgrade a gun, or repair a gun, or a shield, you need specific items as well. And on top of that, there are a bunch of upgrades for your hideout that require a lot of different items also. So the first thing you need to know is that you can track any recipe in the game, and this will add it to a list that you can see while you're looking at the map in raid at any time. And if you come across one of these items, you will see a little eyeball symbol in the corner letting you know that you have flagged this item for a blueprint or an upgrade. Another important thing to know is what items are used to craft or repair the most common things that you're interested in. I would take a look at specific items that you use a lot and track them as well. For example, I repair guns like the anvil a lot, and I also am always looking to make sure that my blue shields are topped off. So to repair the anvil, it requires mechanical components and simple gun parts to restore 50 durability. And to upgrade the anvil, it requires mechanical components and heavy gun parts. This makes these items extremely important to me. Not only will I be looking for them in raid, but any items that recycle into them as well. Also, many of these important items have their own craft in the workbench, so this is going to widen your shopping list even more. The more that you play the game, the more you'll start learning what items you're always looking for and what is no longer a high priority. Take some time, go through all of the items that you like, figure out what it costs to craft them, what it costs to upgrade them, what it costs to repair them, and make sure you track those recipes, and you'll see that little eyeball on the items that you need as you're running through in raid. But if there is ever a doubt, you can always just fall back on keeping the highest rarity items. So the rarity scale is white to green to blue to pink and then to yellow. Next up, let's talk about ammo caliber. I think the big takeaway from this topic is understanding how each performs against players and arc. So starting with the arc, guns using heavy ammo are the best, for sure, which puts the Anvil and the Pharaoh at the top of my list for effectiveness out in raid. Not only do they do the best damage against arc, but they also hit players very, very hard. You might find like a blue or a purple weapon out there and find that it actually isn't quite as good against the arc, and that's because it doesn't use heavy ammo. And that doesn't mean that you can't take out arc effectively with medium. You can, it's just going to take more shots, more hits, and with light and so on. But heavy ammo for sure is the caliber that you want when you're fighting arc. Now for knocking out players, most of the guns and ammo calibers are quite effective. The Pharaoh is probably still the best first strike weapon, taking off huge chunks of damage and then allowing you to weapon swap to a second gun of your choice to finish off your target. I always really like the Toro, for example, and the Vulcan shotguns for close quarters, as well as the Torrenti, which has a very, very large mag size and has a really high fire rate to help decimate players in your way. As far as the best overall gun for the price, I personally like the Anvil. I think it's got great versatility against players in Arc, and you combine that with its relatively cheap price tag, it makes it one of my favorite go-to weapons. Next up, let's talk about your base upgrades. We briefly talked about tracking your workbench upgrades, and you should always be focused on that throughout your time playing Arc Raiders. Also, you want to make sure that you're actively upgrading your stash size, because you're going to be slowly but surely to start amassing a huge amount of items that you're going to be needing for all different types of things. Stash upgrades all cost money that you get from selling items to the vendor. These upgrades get progressively more and more expensive and quickly get into the six figures as you get to the final stash upgrade, which is 280 slots and it costs 200,000. So you need to be making some serious money as you get into the higher stages of your stash upgrade. So you can make decent money selling anything, but I do find that trinkets are your best bet for cash. My favorite spot for farming trinkets is the second floor of admin. This is a hot area for sure, but there are so many lockers and drawers in here, and it's a red loot area as well, which yields a huge number of green, blue, and even purple trinkets. So hop into a dam run, head up to admin, loot it up, and dip out right away. If you aren't having much luck there, or you're dying a lot, you can check out the residential apartments in the northern part of Dam as well. There are quite a few trinkets here, but because it's not a red loot area, it won't be quite as lucrative, but still solid. And to be fair, any red loot area on any map is going to be typically a pretty good spot. You're going to find some good lockers, you're going to find some good drawer loot. So any red area is going to help. I really like admin though as my number one spot. At the end of the day though, you can sell all kinds of things. You can make your money any way you need to, and you don't need to feel like you have to be reliant on one specific strategy. The next tip is using free loadouts, guys. Players have access to free loadouts at all times with no limitations on usage, so you can just spam use them over and over again. The free loadout gives players a green shield, a small bag, a random weapon with an assortment of heals and utility. Guns like the Pharaoh and the Rattler are just fine for survival, and these free loadouts, they're really meant to be used as a scavenging mechanic versus you going in on a free loadout and just pushing PvP. I mean, you can, it's free, but there's not a lot of ammo on these, and it's not really designed to be that way. So if you're struggling to survive, trying to boost up your inventory, or just dropping in to do a mission, the free loadouts are quite serviceable. When you survive a run with a free loadout, of course, you get to keep everything that you found, and you can also trade in the basic augment that it gives you for your choice of either of the three variations, Which brings us directly to understanding the augments. Augments are basically backpack variations with different alterations to things like carry capacity, safe pocket size, maximum shield size, and even some unique attributes as you get into the more advanced ones, like regen 1 HP every 5 seconds, or upon shield break, deploy a small smoke grenade, which is OP by the way. You can grab whichever of these augments works best for you and your playstyle. So just remember, some augments do have a max shield rarity, so meaning that in this example, the Combat MK1 allows for players to use up to a medium shield, which is the blue shield, but at the cost of backpack space compared to the looting MK1, which has a greater backpack size, but you can only use green shields with it. So keep a lookout on the pop-up when you're looking at these augmentations so you can get a better understanding of what that augmentation is allowing for you to use. The next tip is looting raider caches. So the raider caches are hidden on every map, and they typically have an assortment of ammo, utility, and medical supplies. And sometimes they do seem a bit underwhelming, I won't lie. But I would say about 25% of the time I loot a raider cache, there's a blue shield in it. And this is really, really nice early on. This chance to get a blue shield for free is pretty good and definitely worth seeking them out. So the best way to find these caches is to listen for the clicking sound. Oh, raider cache. You can hear it from pretty reasonable distance. I've tested it, it's like around 40 meters away. So always keep your ears perked up, listen for that clicking sound, and go hit those raider caches. Also, keep a lookout for the raider cache map condition, which is going to have a lot more caches available for you to loot. Arc Raiders has many different map conditions that alter the map even outside of weather changes. These conditions are freaking awesome because they basically create a lot of variety in the experience when you're playing these maps over and over again. And you can see on the map selection screen what conditions are going on each map. So check them out because you might change your mind about which map you go to depending on which conditions are going on across all of the different maps. So that's pretty cool. For the next tip, I want to touch on a couple of settings, starting with your crosshair. So if you go to the accessibility tab, you'll find that there are some solid customization options. And I would definitely make some adjustments because I feel like the default crosshair is pretty rough in my opinion. I personally just like a simple circle reticle with a slightly increased center dot, and that works great for me. But some people like messing around with the colors as well of the reticle, maybe changing it to a cyan or a lime green color that could help you see and maybe have a better reticle placement and tracking when you're in fights. So definitely mess around with this. Another setting that I would look into as well is the night mode. Night mode is an audio setting that Embark also had in the finals, by the way. And I do feel like it helps me hear footstep audio slightly better. It's nothing crazy, but I do feel like it's slightly better. Everyone's audio setup is different, so you may not agree with this, but I would definitely try out the night mode and see if it helps you, because obviously if it does, that little extra footstep audio could save your life. And last but not least, guys, you can access the Exfil computer while you're in a down state. This makes for some epic finishes, like all of those times that you've been down by an arc at the last second, you got the Rocketeer shooting you and you're trying to hit the button and it doesn't work and you get down. Well, you can click the button anyway, even if you're in a down state, which happens to us all at some point. So don't forget that. Also, as long as you click the button to call the elevator before it hits 000 on the timer, it will show up. So you don't have to like time it perfectly for the elevator to come up and then be in there at 000. As long as you press the button at 001 or earlier, the elevator will show up. But be careful, it only stays around for a few seconds once it arrives, so make sure you stay close to that exfil. So that's it for the top 10 tips for new Arc Raiders players, and I really hope this video helped you get started on your epic journey. Good luck in all your raids. I stream daily right here on YouTube, so feel free to stop by, ask any questions that you might have, or drop a comment down below if you like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.